Welcome to Roadmap to 1 Million. My name is Stacey Zeal, and if you're looking to make more money, gain your time back, and rapidly grow your visibility so that you can impact way more people with your brilliance, you're in the right place. This podcast is your one-stop shop for turning your online business dreams into a reality. My main goal is to give women entrepreneurs just like you the marketing strategies, guidance, and expert insights you need to hit that $1 million milestone and beyond. Whether you're a coach, a consultant, or an online brand that wants to make a big impact, Roadmap to 1 Million gives you the actionable strategies and inspiration you need so that you can implement right away, no fluff, no fuss. So CEO, are you ready to buckle up and accelerate your growth? Be sure to follow the show and let's dive in. Get ready to uncover your roadmap to 1 million. Hey there, fellow entrepreneurs. Are you doing all the things but hit a revenue ceiling? You're building an audience, you're creating content and making sales, but you feel like something is holding you back from your next milestone. If that sounds like you, it's time to take our What's Your Missing Marketing Link quiz, your go-to tool to identify what's missing from your marketing strategy that might be holding back your business growth. Whether it's fixing your funnel or diversifying your efforts, this quiz will pinpoint those marketing missteps and guide you to success. Take the quiz today and uncover the missing link in your path to 7 figures and beyond. So head over to staceyzeal.co/quiz because success begins with identifying and fixing those mistakes. So don't miss out. Your business deserves to have the impact you desire. Visit staceyzeal.co/quiz. That's STACYZEAL.co/quiz to get a detailed report and the resources you need to help you grow. All right, let's jump back into the episode. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Roadmap to 1 Million podcast. I am your host, Stacey, and I am excited for y'all to be here. I have another fantastic guest for y'all. Y'all know I love to bring on experts in their respective fields. We've talked about HR, we've talked about marketing, we've talked about SEO, but you know what we have not talked about, y'all? We have not talked about joy as it comes to your business and your entrepreneurial journey. And so I am excited to have an expert on joy and business and how to infuse that into your business. I'm excited to welcome Melissa Trumble to the show. Welcome, Melissa. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me, Stacey.
Good. Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. This is something that, like I love to talk about marketing. I love to talk about business, but I also love to talk about joy and abundance and self-care and wellness and all that kind of good stuff. Because I think that those journeys are just so interlinked. Whereas, you could build a life that you don't like, you can build a business that you don't like, or, either way that can suck you dry, or you can really kind of like figure out how to find joy in business, how to find joy in life. And that way, it propels your life forward. So before we get started and talking about all things joy, tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us about who you are, what you do, your journey. Anywhere you want to start is perfectly okay.
Absolutely. So my journey out of preparing taxes and into helping people with their joy started with writing my first book. And from there, I started coaching people. And the whole thing happened to come about because I was like, I have been really miserable for decades. So let's not have that be the expected journey. Why does everything have to be so difficult and hard and painful? And, therapists and psychiatrists and all of the, neurodivergence. For me, it's ADHD, the autism, depression, anxiety. And I realized that with mindset work, you can reprogram your subconscious to actually have a really good blueprint for how you're going to deal with life. What kind of a person are you going to be? And what is possible for you? And it's not complicated. It's just repetitive. Repetition is your friend on anything mindset. And it's what really allowed me to fall in love with myself. And that's what I lead people to do now.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you say that repetition is what makes it stick. Because even I think about, my journey into being having a very joyful life and enjoying my business. it's like it's one of those things that's just like it does require a lot of repetition. It requires you, those like the affirmations. I have an app on my phone that's always, throughout the
Yes.
day giving me affirmations, right? Like, and I'm reading them and I just get the little spark of like, oh yes, I could do this, or oh yeah, that was a really good affirmation. Or journaling practice, therapy. I was in therapy for a couple years before now. I'm kind of like, in that 3-month phase where it's like, okay, we'll check in every couple months.
Hmm.
But it took a lot of repetition and showing up every week and stuff like that. So
Yep.
I love that you mentioned that because it's something definitely I think that we don't realize how much repetition it requires for us to really kind of stick something and to realize that it's stuck. Um, so you talk about business as to talk about joy as a business strategy, right? Like that was something that I thought was really interesting in kind of going through, your content, your background, that kind of stuff. What does joy mean to you, and how did you discover its role? How big of a role it is going to have in the entrepreneurial journey? Let's define what joy actually means.
Okay, so for me, joy is different than happiness. Happiness is when you're satisfied with the choices you've made, with where you are in your life and your business. All of those things are going well, and you're satisfied and happy. That's great. Joy can happen even when you are unhappy. And I like to get people to plant themselves some joy bombs, is what I call them. Just some little things to make you smile. That can be a photograph, it can be a little trinket from some place you went that you loved, but something to remind you about who you are inside and have that moment where your energy goes up, your vibe is just gorgeous and juicy, and you are in the world where everything is always around us, all of the misery and the pain and the frustrations and the difficult decisions, and all of the love and the joy and the happiness and the delight. So pick and choose what you feed yourself. Don't wonder why you feel paranoid if all you do is listen to true crime podcasts and watch scary movies. Well, that's going to affect how you see the world. Your worldview is affected by what you ingest. And it's not just about nutrition, it's about the people you're around and what do you think about them? Do you question people when they're on a bitter pill tirade? And do you wonder, well, what if they didn't have to see everything as so negative? What would that be like for them? And then you turn that curiosity into yourself. Like, what if I could do whatever the thing is you're considering and, biting your nails about in your business or in your relationships or with your kids or, in whatever arena of life you can, it's possible, and you can take a step every day towards it. And it sounds so simplistic and ridiculous. Dang, if it isn't the truth. I mean, I was like getting my second divorce, realizing that I was the source of all the chaos and the tumult. And I just was like, I've had 30 years of therapy. This is not how it's going to go. And yeah, I just started reprogramming. And when I did that, I was surprised at how much my new mindset affected me at work because I was at the time a tax preparer working at a CPA firm, lots of stress, lots of deadlines, a ton of work. The kind of work you just don't think it's possible. And then you're like, you know what? I'm just going to do one thing. And then you do one and one and one. And it made me so much happier. I didn't feel like, the clients were out to get me. The partners were just dumping work on me. And, I was just like, yep, we're here. Let's rock and roll until X o'clock. And then I'm going to leave at 8. And, because you work really long hours during tax season. But that's when I realized that joy can absolutely be a strategy for your business.
Yeah, that is super impactful. I wanted to kind of highlight a couple of things you said. One, that your worldview is impacted by what we ingest. And I think that that's just so spot on because, um, the things that we're so plugged in, we're so connected to social, we're so connected to everything that's happening at once, right? Like as soon as something happens, we know
Yes.
about it, whether it's negative or whether it's positive. And, there's a whole lot of negative shit happening right now, and
Yeah.
our timelines are crowded with, with just so much stuff. And it takes being conscious of what you're ingesting to actually be like, you know what, let me actually instead of ingesting a whole bunch of negative stuff. What if I unfollow all these negative pages and start
Hmm.
following more positive pages, right? Like, what if I,
Yeah,
get rid of some of the apps on my phone that are distracting, and pulling me away, and causing a lot of anxiety and stress, and feeling like, oh, I need to get what this person has, or I need to keep up with that person. And we just really kind of just started to invest more in our personal relationships and other things that we have, in investing in ourselves. And I love that you
that's
mentioned,
gorgeous.
therapy, and realizing that you had to reprogram what you were, reprogram your thoughts, your mindset, and your actions in order for you to get to this new place where you were going to work and feeling more joyful. The work didn't necessarily change, right? But
Oh.
the mindset that you went into it with and the energy that you came into it with shifted. Can you talk a little bit more about that reprogramming? Like, what does that actually look like? Like, for someone who is thinking about, like one, I think a lot of people, one, understand that they are lacking joy in their life. I think that,
Mhm.
we are pretty conscious of, like, yeah, you know what, I'm lacking joy. um but what is reprogramming? What does that even look like?
So, let me tell you a little bit about the subconscious and how it takes in its blueprint for living. When you're little, like starting probably in utero, able to hear things and, the tonality and everything that they've shown helps the, parents build a relationship with their newborn once the baby's born, all up until you're like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. You're taking all these snippets that are happening around you, putting your own child interpretation on it. And then you're like, okay, that's how a parent operates. This is how to be, this is how men should be. This is how women should be. This is what children should be, and the problem with that is that when you're little, especially if you're, a neurodivergent kid like I was in the frickin' 70s when they didn't know anything other than that I was a bad kid, you just hear a lot of no, 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 it's not, no, get down out of that. Nope, nope. And to the point, I'll tell you a little funny story. I was in kindergarten at this Catholic neighborhood school, and Mrs. Atkinson, so nice, so kind. She's trying to teach us our last names. And she's just like, there's another word after your name. Maybe it's when you're, someone's telling you who they are and you tell them who you are, and she's like giving us all these hints. And I was like, oh, well, I know the word that goes after my name. It's GD it. Like Melissa G, damn it, get out of that tree. Melissa, you know?
That is
And so
hilarious.
which is really funny and informs a lot about what I had as my programming, that I was bad, that I wasn't worth, love, affection, anything unless I was behaving in the proper way. And which was inauthentic to me because like, you can't see my hands, but I'm like fidgeting like a mofo, just because like I can't sit still. I never could sit still. And I have tools to work with it. But when you recognize that you put together this map in your subconscious based on all these snippets of when you're a little kid, that's what gives you the permission, the ability, the all the gorgeousness to say, hey, you know what? Is that true? I mean, am I inherently bad? No. Like I can remember being a really tiny kid when it was acceptable for them to be running around all the time and just being delighted and having so much fun and meeting people and always saying hi. They would say, you never met someone who wasn't a friend. And I could remember that feeling. And so I knew I could have it. I just didn't have it as a teenager and as an adult. And I'm incredibly smart, incredibly capable, like we all are. And I would work so hard. I built two successful businesses for two ex-husbands. I, just did everything possible, like an insane amount of time and energy. I was super into crafting. I was working really hard. I was helping them with their businesses, and I was running their businesses. And I never paid attention to me. So I just became a burnt out husk. And I mean, burnout's probably too mild a word. I was absolutely vacant. And so that's what my goal is, to help people avoid. And the way you can do that in my system, get to know who you are. Who are you today? How would you be described? All right, fine. Now let's go to the wheel of life, and you're talking finance, you're talking spirituality, mental health, physical health, relationships in your family, relationships with your partner, friendships, all of those things, finances and working. that come together to create your beautiful life. And where are you getting the instructions for each of those areas? If you grew up, hi, one of 9 kids, did we get the power shut off? Yep. Even the water. Yay. And it was just very uneven. If we had money, it was going to be spent and we'd have a vacation and it would be great. But then you just didn't know what the yelling and the upset and the high stress was going to happen when there wasn't the money and there's too much purchased. And so then that impacted my relationship with money to where there was no way on earth I was ever going to be able to build any wealth, any savings, any cushion, because that didn't even make sense to me. If you have money, you spend it. You build the business more, or I'm not saying I threw it away, but investing it and using it in ways that make me a better person and don't improve my bank account. So it wasn't until I had to really look at in a meditative way to understand, where did my attitudes towards money come from? From my mother, from my father, from all other caretakers, adults I was around, other children. And it goes back. And the thing with memory is really tricky because you may not accurately remember what the heck went on, because there's been years and years since you were a kid, and you may not, you probably will remember the emotion, but you may not remember what actually was verbalized and why you have this nervousness, especially around money. It's such a loaded subject for people and entrepreneurs. So the first step is to really get in tune with how and what you use to put together your attitudes towards living in all areas.
Yeah, I love that, because I think about, when you were sharing your story, I think about, when I growing up, for me, it was like there was always it was always available, at least in my view, right? Like my parents, I grew up in a neighborhood that was, a middle class, somewhat affluent.
Mhm.
And that impacts my, money spending, because it was like I found myself like overspending, because I'm like, it's always gonna be there, right? Like, or I can always,
Right.
it always works out, right? But then you get into this place where you overspend. It causes a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. And I even had to, work through with my therapist, figuring out like, well, why do I only do what I'm supposed to do when my back is against the wall, right? Like if I know that, these bills are due, I know that, I'm overspending it. I'm in the motion of overspending. And then you get to the point where you're like, oh shit, there's going to be a big bill that comes out next month that I can't fix, that I can't cover. And then my back is against the
Right.
wall. I'm like, all right, gotta go. Hustle, 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 figure it out, figure it out, figure it out. And so that is something that I thought about when you were sharing that, just about like, wow, that, it's really impactful, the ways that, you grow up, and how you move through your business, how you move through your life. And it's really important, like you said, to get to know who you are, because I think that, whether the story that you've experienced, regardless of what it is, it's really important to know to know what the story is and how it's impacting you. Because I think that then
Mhm.
when you know how it's impacting you and you know where it's coming from, then you can move differently, because then I think about like, okay, like, let's save more. Let's be a lot more focused on saving. Let's make sure that we have that cushion there, so that we don't go into stress mode when things are, business is up and down, as it tends to be
Right.
sometimes. So I love that when you mentioned that. That was just such a great point.
Thank
Um,
you. And
mhm.
let me just say the next step is identifying who you want to be and what you do think is
Mhm.
true and all of those. And then obviously once you identify that, and that you can take vision boarding, you can take any number of tools to identify that, journaling and all the things. And of course, how do you become that? You take steps towards being that person. You behave in line with that person. And this is where the real friction can happen, because you can say like, I am amazing. I am so healthy. I make good choices. And then when it's 8:30 on a Friday night and you want to watch the horror movie, or, drink the mixed drink or the wine or whatever, well, it gets a little more difficult to make the choices so that you can get up the next morning and exercise first thing. And, how I'm going to have this happy, healthy life. And yet you think that's boring.
Yeah.
Truly,
Yeah.
in your heart of hearts, you're like, that sounds lame. So, how do you rev yourself up to really ignite with that? And that's really important. And that's the tools that you can use in your business to get excited about the parts that maybe aren't your favorite, especially for entrepreneurs when you're either a solopreneur or your team is very sparse.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like, one, it's like, who do you want to be? I think, it's just so important to kind of figure out like, um, who do you want to be, where you're going towards? Like, what is that vision you have for your life? Or like, what are those things that you're doing in your life or in your business that you don't necessarily, align with? And I know that I get those periods in my life throughout my career where I'm just like, I get these moments where I'm just like, am I liking where the direction of where this is going? Like who do I want to be? Where do
Mhm.
I want to go? Is the direction that I'm heading in now the way that's going to get me to where I want to go? Am I still aligned with that? Have I shifted and changed? And because when you were talking about it, it makes me think about that. This seems to be something that's like a continuous cycle because as we grow, as we shift,
Yes.
as we evolve, and we grow, we have to like kind of get to know, okay, who am I now, right? Like who am I?
Right.
Who have I become? Who am I now? Am I happy with where I want to go, or who do I want to be, and what are the areas that I want to make improvements in, and then taking steps towards being that person. I think that it's so
Hmm.
important to also have a coach or a mentor or somebody who's helping you through this, or therapist or who
Right.
whatever that position may be. Um, what are some practical steps that you work with your clients or your audience on, or kind of coach your audience through, in helping them to figure out like what are those daily steps that they can take to bring more joy, to bring more more joy into their day to day, because a lot of this, I think is really important. Like as we set the foundation of like get to know who you are, who do you want to be, start to take those steps. But like, what are those steps after we've identified like who I want to be?
Well, as shocking as it might sound, you can prime your brain to search for joy, to search for laughter, to search for solutions, whatever it is that you're needing in your life when you're falling asleep. And when you just wake up and it's that sort of drowsy, like moonlit time of doziness, and that your brain is in a theta brainwave state, and that you're highly suggestible. And that's when you tell yourself your affirmations. I'm so happy now that I am successful in my business, now that I'm, doing public speaking, like whatever your goal is, now that I'm selling out my programs or my marketing is on point and so clear, and really tune in to the emotion behind that. And you're letting your subconscious know that that's what makes you happy. And you can think of your subconscious as like a friendly, not very bright dog that wants to bring you what you want. And it's whatever you're ruminating about. So if you're always thinking about how everyone does you wrong, how you're the victim here and the world is unjust and it's all against you, your subconscious is like, I got you. I got you, sis. I'm going to go get more examples of that. And then you're only going to see that. Don't you worry. It's like when you're shopping for a minivan. You're like, oh, nobody drives minivans anymore. And then you start looking at them and you're like, good Lord, are there any other vehicles besides minivans? Well, they've always been
Yes.
there. It just wasn't what was standing out to you because it didn't interest you, And so just like that, that's how deceptive our brains can be because it will show us what we've, quote, primed the pump for. Whether that's, putting yourself in a victim mentality or in a like, I'm helpless or I'm not worth it. I can't, that's not for me. I can't have it. And it can be as easy as getting curious. Well, is that true? Why can I not have a day where I go through without feeling that people are talking smack about me at work or, that they're scheming behind my back? Like, well, and because if they are, I can't do anything about that. I can just bring my best self because what they do is speaks for them. How I respond is how I show my character and my face to the world. I show the universe who I am. And it doesn't matter if you have a really bad first reaction inside, but just take a moment, take a couple of breaths. Breathing is your friend in all things mindset. Feel the temperature of the air as it goes through your nostrils. Maybe you can feel it in the back of your throat. As you exhale, is it warmer? Is it moister? And just pay exceptional attention to what is happening physically and ground yourself in that moment and keep breathing And then that can calm, that's going to, well, what it does, it resets the parasympathetic nervous system so that you're not going to be in that fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode. And it allows you the space and the emotional bandwidth to, ah, I'm feeling really triggered. I would love to take this pen and put it through their temple. Huh. Oh, interesting. I wonder why. Yeah. Well, because what they said reminds me of my bitter spinster aunt who criticized me so heartily when I was in seventh grade that summer. Or, you know what I mean? Like there's all kinds of specifics that make us get triggered by other people that have nothing to do with the actual moment. And remind yourself, you don't know what someone else is thinking. And if you've never had a bad day and cut someone off in traffic or, accidentally, talked over someone at a meeting or, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe they're just excited. And you get to say, oh, I just want to point out that I had already said that. You get to enlist collaborators. So especially for women in the workplace, like the next time someone mansplains the idea that I just presented 5 minutes earlier, will you back me up and say, oh, yes, that's what Melissa was saying a few minutes ago? And to elaborate, you know what I'm saying? And to direct it away from the person that is threatening your ability to own your idea. Because that's really frustrating. It makes you feel small. It makes you feel unheard. And there are, those are the kinds of strategies I'm talking about. Like, okay, I talk with my clients. Well, what is it that happens? Why is it that you get upset? What can you do to physically calm your nerves so that you can behave in the situation? Practice. Say the words that you're going to say. Make sure that you have the tone of voice that you want. You have this facial expression that you want, the body language. There are so many ways to communicate, and the words are just like 5% of it. Over 90% of it is intonation, body language, and then word choice is like off to the side.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing definitely some of the science behind how our subconscious works. I was listening to a podcast and the guest was talking about how your brain, like it was talking about like motivation. And one of the things when he was saying with motivation is that like you will tell yourself, okay, I'm going to go work out because I want to, look a certain way or I want to lose, 20 pounds. You go to the gym that first time, you obviously don't lose 20 pounds after the first time. And so your brain is telling your brain is telling yourself, okay, well, that didn't work, right? Like, let's focus on doing something else. But really, so what his whole thing was that like, if you're detaching from the outcome of like, okay, I want to look a certain way and shifting to more thinking about, I'm just going to go to the gym, like just focusing on it as a task rather than something that's attached to an outcome. And I find that a lot of times when it comes to business, especially, when it comes to marketing and stuff like that, right? Like we put stuff out there and because we don't get that immediate like feedback of like, oh, this was great. And now you're going to be a millionaire. We think, oh, let me not do this. It doesn't work and stuff like that. And it really sounds like it's our brain kind of like our subconscious really kind of like telling us that, that didn't work.
And it isn't true. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I love what you said about that. And then being able to also like talking about breathing when it comes to, like this kind of stuff and physically being able to calm yourself down. I've done yoga for a while. And one thing that I will always pull from yoga is my breath and like my ability to just be like, okay, it's from years of doing it, right? Like it's not something that like I went to one class and now I'm a breathing expert, but from years
exactly, just like that.
Now it's become a habit, I guess, or I'm more conscious of like, okay, I'm getting a little too excited. I start to feel pressure in my head, and I'm like, okay, I need to calm down. I need to breathe. I need to drop my shoulders down. I need to remove the tongue from the roof of my mouth, release my jaw, right? Breathe. All of that stuff becomes, it happens over time, and it happens like when we open the conversation with repetition. So I love that. Love that you mentioned all of that. Tell me a little bit about how we can reconnect with that joy, to reignite that passion and motivation, because I think that that's something we also like as we round out our conversation. you become across business owners that have lost the fire, like or even like in corporate, right? Whether you work in a corporate or not, but most people that listen to this podcast are business owners, but you've lost that fire. Like you've built something, even if it's really successful, right? Like, it's
Right.
built it from the ground up, it's paying your bills, you're able to go on vacation, you're able to do those things, but you just feel like you've just kind of like lost that spark or that fire. How can we reconnect to that? Or how do you coach your clients through being able to reconnect with that spark, passion, fire, however you want to really kind of define it?
So there's a couple of avenues there. One is to gamify your life. So, if it's that you're, man, I thought that this was going to be the year of the gym and I went all January and February and then, well, I sprained my ankle and I never went back. And now here we are, it's September. Okay, well, great. Well, then what is the win? Is it going to the gym? So even if you get to the gym and you walk 5 minutes on the treadmill, that is a big check plus for that day. And let that be the thing. That's the goal, is to get to the gym. Oh, you want to expand your horizons, then you will always be reading at least a chapter of a book a day. Even if it's while you're brushing your teeth, you are going to read the dang words and you are going to expose yourself to other ideas. And it sounds like a chore. However, when you're checking off those lists, that's where you get the dopamine hit and you celebrate it. That's why people will say, well, celebrate yourself. And you're like, what are you talking about? But seriously, shake your booty, clap your hands, sing a song, dance around, and really say, like, I slayed that presentation. Oh my goodness, can you believe my new product? Like really just let yourself feel the excitement and the joy like you're a child. Remember how excited you would be when you finished something and you did it? Like, look, I did that. We still have access to that feeling. You're still doing stuff. So give yourself permission to really revel in living and the things that you're doing. And aside from gamification, have realistic expectations and goals. Not, I want to be the next Oprah Winfrey. Okay, great. Now that I have my podcast on a streaming broadcasting company, I want to expand it and have a TV show within 2 years. Okay, great. Well, that's something that I can work toward, right? I can build the podcast. I can get the people to listen to it and, expose it to more and more people, spread that word. So that's a very specific instance of something I'm doing right now. But for me to say, like, I'm going to have a primetime, talk show, I'll be the next Kelly Clarkson. Well, hang on a dang second. I'm in my 50s. That ship has sailed. I can be the next me.
Yes,
And
I
I
love
think
that.
that that's giving yourself permission to wonder what that would feel like, to connect with the emotion behind it.
Mhm.
And that's what is the emotion that's going to get you motivated. It's the emotion that's going to light that fire. And when all else fails, you could just be low key depressed. And then that's when you get into your self-care. I'm
Mhm.
talking hydration,
Mhm.
nutrition, moving your body, getting enough sleep. Like, I mean, take it down Barney style to the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s. Like, treat yourself as your beloved toddler, and expect to have resistance, because subconscious is like, no, let's go back to yesterday. We lived through yesterday. And that's all that is. It's a survival mechanism. Your lizard brain is like, oh, being exactly how you were yesterday is how we are alive right now. Boom. That's what we want to do.
I love that. That's hilarious. It's such a great analogy because it makes so much sense, right? Like, and you over time you start to realize that you've been in the same place for a long time.
Yeah.
You realize that you've had that goal to, write that book or to launch that podcast for a long time, and you've just been kind of sitting on it and thinking about it. But I love when you say, creating those realistic expectations and goals because, trying to be the next Oprah, like, what does that even mean? How do you even do that? Right. Are you cloning yourself to become the next Oprah? Or are
Yeah.
we
Are you
like taking
traveling in
her?
time back to the 80s?
Yeah. Are you taking her exact career path? Because she's had a lot that has on in her life, right? Like, like
Mhm.
so many things that have happened to her personally and professionally. So are we saying that that's what we're going to do? Or are we actually saying, I admire her success and I admire where she's at, but I want to make it, I want to walk the journey to becoming the best me and, stepping into who I am and then letting that manifest in however it's going to manifest. Maybe you're bigger than Oprah, right? You try to be Oprah,
Right.
you get to her level. Maybe you're bigger than Oprah. Maybe you don't want to be as big as Oprah because Oprah can't even go to the grocery store without people harassing her.
Right. Right.
So I love that.
And that's even better. So Stacey, what that is get clear on what it is you're actually trying to do. So when I say that I want to have the impact of Oprah, I want to measurably increase joy in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that is by going one to many in speaking engagements, in broadcasting, and all these things, and sharing these tips and tricks that so many of us. I'm generation. What am I? Gen X. Yeah. We were just like, yeah, go drink water out the hose. Get out of here, kid. And so without that sort of nurturing, we're still here. Like we never had. It's as if you went through school and you never took math. We never had any emotional education. And so here we are as grown adults being like, well, but I do want to poke their eyes out. Like, what do I do with that? And so that's what my message is to teach people how to be curious about yourself. Ask yourself if it's true, the story you're telling yourself, and decide, choose how you respond. Don't just go with your first emotional reaction because that's based on some knee-jerk bleepity bleep from your past.
Yeah, that's such a great way to round this out because I love the work that you're doing. I love being able to bring on guests that can help us to live a more well-rounded life because it isn't only just about marketing and business and how big we can get, right? It really is about enjoying the ride. I know for me personally, I have to enjoy the ride. I've gone through a lot of different, iterations of my life and iterations of myself. And the one thing I realized that makes me pivot, the biggest thing that makes me pivot is when I'm no longer feeling aligned with what I'm doing or I don't feel joy in what I'm doing, like, and it's something that I just get to the point where I'm like, okay, that chapter is closed. Like, let's move on and let's figure out what's next. And so I love that you mentioned being, how to be the next me or how to be the next you. I think that should be on a t-shirt personally. But so thank you for for giving us all this great information. Tell everybody how they can work with you, how they can connect with you if they want to learn more, all the stuff.
Absolutely. I am getting a group together that is going to launch in October, and it is all about falling in love with yourself and being charmed by this amazing, luscious, gorgeous, miraculous creature that you are. So that's going to be in a group setting, very affordable. And then also follow my podcast. I am given the goods. I am not one to chinch on the info. Like this is truly my mission. I want to measurably increase joy in the world. I want people to love themselves and be charmed by themselves, have foibles, not faults. Because when we love someone, oh, well, that's that thing they do. It's actually kind of charming. But when it's us, we have this hideous inner voice being like, don't be ridiculous. You'll never be loved. Like, you look at what you do. Blah, blah. And it's just like, all right, sit down there, Cruella. Nah, that's not true.
I love that. I love that. Awesome. Well, y'all definitely make sure if you want to work with Melissa, you go to the show notes because that's where we'll have her links to her social accounts, links to the website, all the things if you want to learn more about bringing more joy into your life. And if you want to learn more about the coaching program that she has coming up, definitely make sure that y'all visit the show notes so you can get the link or just hit me up and I'll get you the link over, get it over to you. But yeah, thanks again, Melissa. This has been fantastic. I'm excited to kind of go back and listen to this episode and listen to it with a fresh set of ears instead of being
that makes me so happy.
and being able to figure out like what are some things, some gems that I can take and put into my life. Because like we were saying earlier, I think this is always a continuous thing. I don't think that there is like we've reached joy, now we can focus on something else, right? Like, let's make sure that it's a part of our everyday and we recognize when that joy is depleting so that we can refill it. And working with people like you and reading your books and all that kind of stuff, I think will definitely help people. So thanks y'all for tuning in for this episode of Roadmap to 1 Million. If you are not following the show, please make sure you're following the show. We do have new episodes drop every Tuesday. And if you have been here before and you are following the show, I would really, really appreciate you sharing this on social. Make sure you tag me in it. Let me know what you got out of it. Let me know what you're going to be doing to impart some more joy in your life and your business, because I really, really want to know. And I'm very curious. I'm also very nosy. But but I hope that y'all have found this conversation impactful and helpful. We're going to go ahead and end it there. If you have anything that you want to say about the podcast or say about the show, we also love to get reviews, because that helps us to get more people listening to the show. So thanks again, y'all. I'll talk to y'all next week.
Thank you.
OMG, that episode was packed with gems. Are you ready for more? Head over to stacyzeal.co/podcast to get the show notes and to sign up to get our top 5 podcast episodes to help you streamline your marketing so you can make this your $1 million year. Head over to stacyzeal.co/podcast.